Hi, this is Bob Baker. Welcome to The Creative Entrepreneur. Before we jump into this latest interview, I just want to make sure that you don't miss any of the awesome interviews that I'm posting, nearly one every week. It's really easy to stay informed. You can get on the VIP email list. It's free, and I'll send you an email every time I post a new interview. Just go to DIYcareermanifesto.com, get on the email list, and you're set. And another cool perk to getting on the list is that I will also send you a big, fat, free sample of my new book called The DIY Career Manifesto. It's the unconventional guide to turning your talents and your know-how into a profitable business, just like a lot of the people that I interview. So get on the list, DIYcareermanifesto.com. And now on to this week's interview. Let's do this thing.
All right. Crank it, baby.
Hey, welcome to The Creative Entrepreneur. I'm Bob Baker, back with another amazing person. And this time it's someone who is primarily a visual artist these days, but she's got an incredibly varied and rich background in the arts. And this is my friend Robbi Firestone here on Skype. How are you, Robbi?
I am so good, Bob. It's so good to see you.
Likewise, and you are. I'm speaking to you from your home where you're currently making your residence in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Correct?
Yes, I live between Seattle and Santa Fe.
That's right, and you've lived many other places, which we're going to be talking about. Just in an effort to be transparent here, I'd like to. I don't mind sharing with people that we met in sort of a unusual way. Earlier this year, I launched a series of 4-week online courses. I called them master classes, and they were based on my book, The Guerrilla Music Marketing Handbook. And I don't know if it was the first or I think it was the second one that I launched. You had signed up, and then you sent me an email saying, well, actually, I'm not really a musician. I'm a visual artist, but you were taking it because you thought you could learn something from musicians, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. That because I know the value of learning things from other industries, but you actually invested in a course that wasn't even for visual artists. And so what ended up happening was that what I did in this course is for those of you who don't know, is I pair people up with success partners, kind of like accountability partners, and I ended up with an odd number of people. So, that means I either have to find someone to make it an even number of the pairings, but I thought to myself, I'm really been getting into art a lot this past year, and she needs a partner. I may just offer myself so I became your partner on that module and the next one, and we became fast friends, did we not?
Yes. Yes, you are absolutely one of my cherished friends now. I'm grateful.
Thank you. And actually, you visited St. Louis recently and got to meet Pookie, my significant other, and
so my favorite friend now.
And so we definitely have a great connection here. And so I was really I've been asking you we've been trying to set this up for a number of weeks now to talk to you about your incredible journey. And so before I get into my list of questions for people that don't know about you, tell me a little bit about your history, because you've done a lot of things, wasn't it? You've done theater and music, and just explain to folks what kind of your background and what led to what you're doing now.
Well, the short version would be I've always been passionate about self-expressive pursuits and creativity. And so starting in high school was doing art and theater, and in my whole life have kind of bounced between those until about a decade ago. I moved to New York City when I was 17 to be an actor and go to Parsons School of Design. And I did both of those, ended up off Broadway and singing cabaret throughout New York and doing fringe festivals and film festivals in Munich. And so I was an actor. And I was in graphic design as an artist simultaneously, always had 2 careers happening. And then moved to Los Angeles and did the same thing. I started running an entertainment company and painting on the side. So, people talk about the 10,000 hours and focus, yet as a creative, I've always felt myself moving between these worlds of acting and singing and painting. And now my focus is really on painting, but I miss singing. So my sense is I'll probably start taking lessons again and do some cabaret in New Mexico and see where that goes.
Absolutely. And the reference you made to the 10,000 hours was probably a reference to Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, I think, and in there he was talking about anyone who, or many people that reach a state of, I guess, excellence in their field, they generally have to put in about 10,000 hours, and often that and while I guess you can compress it or extend that out, it generally also equates to around 10 years for the most part. He used people like the Beatles and other references in there about how they hone their skills. And so, yeah, you've definitely put in those hours. I also think it's fascinating. I mean, I think a lot of creative people are drawn to different creative fields.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of rare, actually, for somebody just to be only a musician or only an actor or only a painter, right?
Yes, and it's interesting. Different environments support that. I lived for 8 years in Los Angeles, and in LA, when I was an actor, you were frowned upon in the communities that I knew. You were frowned upon if you were an actor writer. It was like, well, what are you, a writer or an actor? Mm-hmm. And they really wanted you to segment and focus. Whereas I'm in Santa Fe now, and everyone I know does some additional creative pursuits. And so there's this phenomenal sense of collaboration. One of the greatest painters in town who just won the Governor's Award, Darren Vigil Gray, is also a phenomenal drummer, unbelievable musician. And he's a great artist who's gallery represented here in Santa Fe. So I really believe deeply in doing what makes your soul feel good creatively, and that'll just come out. I mean, look at your paintings behind. You're a musician and you're doing these beautiful paintings, right, selling them in galleries, and by the way, folks, they're for sale.
Thank you very much.
So I love that you and I connect on that freedom of you're a painter, you're a musician, you're a writer, as am I.
Very cool. And thank you for mentioning the artwork. And as you can kind of see back there, I have over the past year, even though I haven't done this over my whole 40-year sort of dabbling in painting, I have been focusing on these like pop art celebrity portraits. Now you also, as a painter, are focused on portraits, but you do a completely different thing. You actually have like real humans come in and they do sittings with you, like the old-fashioned way, where you sit there. They're actually in the room. So explain that real quickly, that evolution, and what you're doing. And I know you have a special term for the type of portraits that you do.
Well, that's true. It's funny to call it old-fashioned. Here's an example behind me, actually, of a client of mine. I'm shipping that painting to you very soon. Old-fashioned like me painting Keb Mo and Bart Millard and musicians like that. So I do what I call spirit capture oil portraits, where I focus on someone's inner beauty as well as their outer likeness. So when we sit together, it's fun. We drink champagne or wine. Well, they do. I try to focus, but and
really
we talk
abstract
the
otherwise.
Entire time. Yeah, it's like I really focus on their personality and their colors and from where they come in their lives. So if it's someone sort of subdued and private and maybe cooler colors, and if it's like Keb Mo, he's 4-time Grammy Award winner and this vivacious, exciting, beautiful personality, and his background is magenta and gold and all these electric colors as if stage lights are hitting him. So each of the pieces are distinctly in my style, and yet the palette specifically honors the person's personality individually.
That's very, very cool. I guess what I meant by old-fashioned was, I guess, all those like Renaissance era, all those stately, those all the portraits that you see in museums. They actually did it with human beings in they weren't working from photos like I do with these things behind me, and it's a whole different art form. I would be intimidated if someone was sitting in front of me while I was trying to capture their image. So
Stick with me, kid. You'll do it before you know it.
You teach me a few things, Robbie.
You know, the sitting is what feeds my heart. You know, that's what feeds my soul. I had a prospect contact me this week and ask me, "Would you paint a photograph of my mother? She had passed away," and I could do that, yet it doesn't. Or in that particular moment, it didn't itch at my heart. So I said, I'd love to, yet I don't think this is going to work for me. So I referred her to another portrait artist,
Oh, cool.
who does work from photos. And, you know, and I like that too, because I like supporting other artists. And I have focused, you know, I know what I do. I will do photographs of people. A lot of my clients are CEOs or famous musicians or actors or what have you. And they don't have time to sit for 8 hours with me in my studio for 2 days, what have you. So then I'll go and like I did with Bart Millard of the band Mercy Me, I went backstage during his concert, sold out at the Coliseum in Portland, Oregon, and they set up a green room of my own. I painted him when he could, you know, in between the gig and afterwards, and it was fantastic. All access pass was fabulous. I loved it, and the great guys, great people in that band. And then a year later, I went back and presented it to him at a sold out show in the Tacoma Dome in Washington State. So I adjust to my clients' needs entirely.
That's cool. And how many years now have you been kind of focusing on this portrait, like this most recent, you know, focus on painting? How many years does that go back?
I would say I've been really focused on my painting for about 10 years.
Okay, cool. There you go. There's another 10 years, 10,000 hours.
And thank you for that, because I had a client in Virginia. I painted his wife 5 years ago, and I love the painting. Yet the painting I've just done of him as a complimentary painting for the two of them sit together, it's wonderful. I'm not going to be shy to say it. It's a wonderful painting, and I can see how much I've grown technically. Sure. And it's just exciting to see that.
Right.
You know?
Even looking at my own paintings over the past 6 months to a year, when I've gotten back into it, I see a you know, you always fall in love with your most recent stuff, and I think that's only natural, you know.
Yeah, that's what I tell everyone. Yeah.
So that's a great overview of your background, Robbie. So now I'm going to go into my official list of questions. So looking back on, whether you want to look back on the past 10 years, you know, as with the focus on art or just your entire creative career, if you were to identify like 3 key factors that you feel sort of led to your success or are responsible for, especially if, you know, factors that other people can learn from, what would those be?
One, probably the most important for me, is always learning. I was always researching free seminars that your city gives. Every city I've lived in gives free seminars to small business entrepreneurs. And so I would go to those seminars, and I would take free newsletters that I got from art sources like Allison Stanfield, who's a art business coach, or yourself. You know, your newsletter is chock full of good information. And honestly, I use those as homework. So if you send me something in a free newsletter that looks like it's going to fit my business and it's a good idea, I stay up that night and I do it. And sometimes they're big projects and what have you, but I really believe there's such great people who are so generous like yourself giving away information, and that is absolutely number one for me. And another is masterminds, and I'll set a mastermind group. Everyone's smarter than I am in that group usually, so that I can be learning from and contributing to them. And accountability partners, which any form of accountability drives me into a much higher level of success, because otherwise I can go, well, I'll do that tomorrow, right. You know, and, you know, if Bob's calling me in the morning at 9 o'clock in the morning and saying, what'd you get done yesterday? And I didn't eat those frogs, then I, you know,
right.
I'm embarrassed. So, and then another thing is, I create opportunities with other creatives. So as an artist, I'll create an event that integrates musicians and and frankly, musicians who self-promote really well, and are an equal to me, a partner, a match in terms of our own efforts as artists and getting out in the world and promotion. And the last is really partnering with charities I believe in. At my last gallery opening last month, we were able to raise $4,000 that night for the Food Depot, which feeds hungry people in New Mexico. And for me, I love supporting art charities, but if you're not fed and sheltered, and if you're worried about the safety of your family, then there's no creativity.
Right.
You can't be creative because that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, bottom tier, isn't taken care of. So my passion is supporting causes that feed people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let me just kind of touch on some of the things. I made notes on what those factors that you talked to Abe about. So now that I've done like a dozen or so of these interviews, I am starting to see some patterns, and some commonalities between a lot of. And so one of those is the sort of whole concept of being a lifelong learner. And so everyone, realizes they always have to be continuously evolving and growing. Not that you'll never understand it all or get it all, but at least you're always feeding your mind with new information. And so a lot of people talk about the value of investing in your education, but I like the way I'm actually glad that you mentioned the free stuff, because a lot of people think, I don't have money to buy books, attend workshops. There's tons of free stuff that you can still get, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone wants to know what they are, contact me at www.robbifirestone.com. And I'll send you more than you want.
But there's also, like I said, websites, email newsletters, but also, like I said, the cities or the local arts organizations often will offer workshops, and I've actually spoken a lot of them here in St. Louis, and even if they charge, sometimes they're like $10 or something, and so it's still pretty affordable, so that's awesome. Yeah, masterminds and accountability partners, those are, and of course there are programs like mine, you can join, my classes are like with $200, and there's mastermind groups that people charge for, but if money is an obstacle, you can create these things on your own too. Just team up with another, and I guess the key to choosing an accountability partner is someone who's at least your equal, if maybe not ahead of you in what they're doing, right?
Do your best to find someone who knows more than you do. Absolutely.
And someone who's committed and responsible and not going to slack off or whatever. And so, but there is something about that, and I learned this with you, and there's been a couple other people over the years that I've teamed up with in different scenarios, and there is something about knowing you're going to speak to someone the next morning that I think you were telling me even that you got it. Sometimes you didn't get the stuff done the previous day, but like you got up early because we talk usually in the morning
sometimes to just. Oh gosh, Bob's going to be calling me.
and your husband's going, who is this Bob guy? Why are you getting out of bed so damn early?
I'm getting out of bed to go hang out with Bob.
It's a nice little compliment there. Although I think it's, never mind.
Are you flushing?
I was going to say, my younger single days, it would have been, more encouraging if they were getting into bed. Never mind, instead of getting out, but that's another story. There's a joke there somewhere. So yes, accountability partners. As I gather my composure here, and then opportunities with other creative people. That's brilliant. And you can, like, an artist can certainly do group shows with other artists. And actually, I know some really ambitious indie kind of artists locally, the people that are sort of really the movers and shakers, well, instead of waiting for a gallery to put out a call for artists or whatever, they'll just create their own. They'll approach a venue, right?
Yes. Non-traditional opportunities. I'm all about those.
And I know you're not sort of a snobby, I need to be in galleries type of gal either, right? You're all about taking the non-traditional path. And
well, I think because I've taken the non-traditional path, I've really recognized how much artists rely on, I really need an agent, I need an agent. I have built my entire career myself, and I just, for the first time, since I've taken this very seriously as a career a decade ago, did my first gallery show. And yet I would do events and a lot of charity things. I would open my studio, gift it to a charity to do a fundraiser in my studio, and that sort of thing really worked because there was no overhead. I didn't have to split, with the gallery. And I love my gallery, and I'm very, very happy with working with them and paying that check when they sell a portrait. I'm thrilled to do that, and I don't stop marketing myself ever because I'm the only person who's going to feed me.
Right.
That's my job. It's not someone else's job to feed me or to take care of me and my business needs and my personal needs.
Right. So it's taking personal responsibility for where you are and not blaming the local scene or whatever.
Or the economy. Yeah. Boom. It's like, okay, so it is. The more you say the economy's bad, so be it. That is your life. The economy is bad.
And I want to point out something that you did recently, and I don't know if it's part of your answers upcoming. I don't want to be jumping the gun here, but so you're relatively new to Santa Fe, I guess, even though in the past year or less, even, right?
5 months.
And so in August, it's a month or two ago, depending on when this airs, you did something, and I know it was a long time in planning, but you did something that was really brilliant in sort of introducing yourself to your city, and you did this thing called the Spirit of Santa Fe was the show, and so you approached a local gallery and with this idea, and so you did portraits of well-known people in Santa Fe. You tied it into a local charity there. And so, and even though it was from the goodness of your heart, I mean, there was some strategic planning, there's a purpose for doing that, right?
Absolutely. So Spirit of Santa Fe was exactly that. I love Santa Fe, and a common story for people here who gravitate to this is, I don't know why I chose Santa Fe. I just felt called, and so to be in Santa Fe. So I was speaking to a gallery director who was just a friend of mine and said, I have this idea. I want to do Spirit of Santa Fe, and I want to ask folks who've been in the community for 20, 40 years and really understand and contribute to Santa Fe. And I want to ask them the questions, what is the Spirit of Santa Fe? And what does spirit mean to you? And the gallery director said, I'll do that show. So I thought, wow, okay, why not? Why fight it, So we did the show, and they, having been established in Santa Fe for a long period of time. Oh, by the way, the gallery is Casweck, CASWECK galleries.com. And they helped me. They chose the people I would do portraits of. Mm-hmm. And ended up having 24 pieces in the show. And I learned about my new hometown, and they chose a lot of people who were very established, and then they helped promote the show in their own ways. And as for the charity, there's so many charities that you can work with, and so I chose the Food Depot, because I believe in feeding people, as I just spoke about, but also they're very, very smart as business people, and they wanted to work with me. So during the opening, I had them do a 5-minute presentation on the Food Depot. So it wasn't just about my art. It was like, hey, people, we're all together. We can do some good in the community. Food Depot spoke. Brilliant, brilliant director of development spoke, Jill Gentry. And we made some money. I mean, $4,000 at a gallery opening for a charity is wonderful. Just wonderful. And also there were 2 church groups who learned about the Food Depot and decided to start tithing to the Food Depot. And my ongoing sales, I give 3% of all my sales to the Spirit of Santa Fe to the Food Depot. And I'm also committed to doing that. Every project I do, I give 3% to a charity.
Cool. There's just so many lessons there, and it can be applied to many genres. I mean, a group of bands could do a series of songs about local topics. Writers can compile a book of writings about local topics, and so this concept is just a great way to sort of get ingrained, pay tribute to your hometown, but especially in your case to establish yourself as a new person in the city and pay tribute to it, and suddenly your profile is now raised as a result. So good work, Robbi.
great. We had, thank you. We had, we stopped counting at 300 people walking in the door. And having been new in Santa Fe after 5 months, that was a really good turnout. Sold 2 commissions that night and another piece. And, it was very successful for me. And I'm incredibly grateful. And yeah, it was strategic with heart.
Right.
Strategic with heart.
That's actually a good quote. Be strategic with heart. As opposed to non-strategic with heart, or strategic and with a cold heart or something. Heartlessness. No, but that's not you. Yes.
Strategic Scrooge. Not interested.
Same here. All right, Robbi, let's move on to the next question here, which is about challenges. So I'm sure over this 10, however many years of your creative endeavors, you've experienced some hurdles you had to overcome. If you were to identify one of them and what you learned from that situation, what would that be?
My greatest challenge. I think my greatest challenge would be telling myself I'm no good as an artist. I'm not. And even yesterday, I was having lunch with a not so young woman who is an artist. Oh, I just don't know if my art is good enough to sell. It's like, let me tell you something. You are not the judge of that. You just create it, and if somebody wants to sell it, because that creates an energy flow. I'm very spiritual in the way I look at money, and I think of money as just one more energy flow that's spirit, that's God, that's of spirit, that's God. And it's a currency. And just like generosity is a currency or what have you. And she said, oh, I had a friend who told me I shouldn't sell my pieces because, they'll be worth a lot one day. I said, you know what? Sell your pieces because A, you're going to run out of space storing them, and B, you're opening yourself to learning about selling. And she's like, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough. I said, somebody walked into your studio and told you they wanted to buy your piece. You should have said sold. How much? And I just told myself over and over and over, oh, I'm no good. I'm no good. Someday I'll be good. Listen, Picasso had an early period. This is Robbi Firestone's early period. And if someone wants to pay for that artwork, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll produce more, and then I'll be in the later period, and more people will buy those paintings for a little more money, and so on and so on. So it's not your job to judge your artwork. It's your job to produce your artwork and see if you can gift it to the world.
Right.
Make some cash.
Absolutely. I think it's fascinating that that your challenge here, and I've heard this echoed by some of the other people, that I've interviewed in this series and just over the years. But so quite often when you say what a challenge that you face, and somebody will say, well, maybe it was something that happened with the economy, or somebody, I lost a client, something that happened outside of themselves. But you actually use a self-imposed challenge. And I've often said some of the biggest obstacles we face as humans and as artists and creative people are the self-imposed ones from our own, the stories we tell ourselves in our heads.
It's all about that for me.
Right.
It all comes from me. I'm responsible for everything in my life. And if I'm not selling artwork, that means that I have just not created another opportunity for myself.
Right. That's brilliant. But we all have those voices, the inner critic, usually because whether it's the angel or the devil on your shoulder or something, the different voices, and it's not a case of eradicating them, or you'll never maybe completely get rid of them. It's just sort of getting at peace with them and going, oh, that's interesting. Now move along. I got important work to do.
And you were asking what are the things that the key things that help support my success. Well, one of the key things is also getting rid of naysayers, getting rid of anyone. I mean, loving them, blessing them on their way, even if they're family. Like, you can have family, but don't talk about your work with them if they're telling you you're not good enough. You've got to get rid of those people in your mind, and you've got to put around yourself people who are going to support you and tell you you're wonderful and your work is good and you can do this. And, you got to have cheerleaders, because it's all about the team. None of it is, that was the other thing is like when I thought I was doing it all myself, it's like, no, I got to plant people around me who say, you can do this, go girl.
Right, and that's where when you talked about masterminds and success partners and all that. That's where that comes. You purposely surround yourself, put yourself in an environment of other people, at least on this pursuing the same thing, to where you're giving each other encouragement.
Yes.
And I guess it's also, I know in an earlier interview, I talked about this whole thing about balance. I think it was when I was talking to Carrie Cole, who's another very, entrepreneurial woman. And we were talking about this balance between, like, on one hand, yeah, you gotta feed yourself with positive, yeah, I am good enough, and believe that and live that. But at the same time, you have to be a lifelong learner and realize I'm not done. There's still a lot of room for improvement. So it's like, but sometimes people say there's room for improvement because I'm not good enough, and that's sort of, there's a balance between, yes, I am good enough, and I still need to learn.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But those are opposite. Sort of, some people kind of veer to one extreme or the other and sort of do themselves in, I guess.
There's an interesting book a friend of mine introduced me to called The War of Art. And it's all these mental tricks we play on ourselves to keep us out of musical studio or art studio. And it was great because I got about a quarter of the way in and I closed the book and went, 5 years ago, I needed to read this. Right now, I don't, because I'm in the studio. But it's a great book, The War of Art, if you're overcoming those voices.
Right, and I have that book. It's by Stephen Pressfield, I believe, and I will link to it in the show notes because I'm very familiar with that. It's all about getting over a resistance. He has resistance with a capital R. It's going to battle with that thing that procrastination and things that tell you, I should be doing something else instead of writing or painting or whatever. And so,
yes. And there are a couple other good books I can recommend if you like. But
awesome. Well, yeah, I'll have a question coming up real soon about your favorite a book that changed your life. But before then, I want to ask you about advice that you would give to your younger self. So this is we may I have a feeling that we're probably going to touch on some themes that we've already discussed. But if you can go back and have a conversation with young Robbi Firestone, and you
poor girl.
And I know, you have roots in Missouri, actually, where I'm in St. Louis, and you were. I found out, when we first got in touch, that you actually grew up in southern Missouri, I believe. So I don't know if you want to have a talk with that younger self or some other stage. But anyway, if you were to go back and give yourself 3 pieces of advice, and the first one would be, what would you do exactly the same? Yes, Robbi, these are the things that have really helped me, and I want you to do that. But then the second part of it will be what were the time wasters, what were the things not to do, and then what were the good things that you should have done earlier because you just didn't realize it at the time that you should have brought into the mix at an earlier date. We'll just take them one at a time. So What worked? What would you do exactly the same?
Courage, chutzpah. I recognized when I was not satisfied or fulfilled. And I believe courage is a practice. A lot of people say, Robbi, you are fearless. Let me tell you, I was the most terrified girl on the planet. My mom died when I was 3, so I have a lot of insecurities that I had to really work on. And so I know this isn't really art related, but I recognized that I was terrified of spiders when I was 23 years old. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to affect the rest of my life. How stupid. These spiders aren't even poisonous. They're just little things. Right. And so one Halloween, I covered myself in spiders, completely creeped me out, and in plastic spiders, and it became a joke. And so by the end of the night, every time I'd see a spider, I'd think of my Halloween costume. I didn't think of the spider being scary. And then I had a friend who had a tarantula, and he put it in my hand, and it crawled on me and creeped me out, and I was a little afraid, but I got over it. And so every year for my birthday, I've chosen to do something that scares the living
you know what?
Out of me. Yeah. And so I've skydived. I did it once. I don't think I need to do it again. It was unbelievable. I've scuba dived with great white sharks. And those are big things over the course of decades of birthday accomplishments. But I do things that scare the hell out of me. And that manifests in my choices around my creative process and my art.
Cool.
I'm not scared to use this iridescent, crazy color in a portrait because I jumped out of an airplane, for God's sake.
Yeah.
It's like, what's wrong with using that color? You know, or public speaking, or whatever the fears are. I place myself in those spaces that take me out of my comfort zone so that I am expanded and these fears don't control me. And that is a huge part of what I think I've done right.
That is awesome. Yeah, getting comfortable with facing your fears and the uncertainty of
take them head on. You know,
right.
Navajo have an idea that you have an obstacle before you. It doesn't stop you. You just walk around it or you climb over it, and they teach their children that. And that's just what fear is. It's just an obstacle. It's mental. It's not real.
Right.
You know?
That's the important thing to get that often eludes us. How about something that was a time waster that you would recommend to your younger self that you avoid?
A time waster. Can we come back to that one?
Sure, we can. Absolutely. There are something that worked for you sort of later in your career that you wish maybe now that you would have started doing sooner, or that you recommend to young creatives that they start doing sooner. And we may have already touched on it, but if you have anything else to add.
I think it would be education, always finding those free resources and those things that just give you your own assignments for your creative process.
Good.
I think that's it.
Yeah, again, coming back to the lifelong learner thing, never think you got it all figured out, or getting too you don't want to get too cocky, but yet you want to be confident. So again, it's like this tightrope that we walk. So yeah, did you want to? We can skip the completely avoid thing, or if you got something to add to it.
Tell me the question again.
It would be like what didn't work. Like, so maybe you in your younger days of pursuing painting or theater or whatever, you went down this line of action thinking this is the thing I should be doing, when you realize now, looking back, you shouldn't have really done that because it was the wrong thing to do. So
I had a culture of no. I had a culture of religious, sociological, familial thoughts in my head that the answer is no. And so I was a naysayer to myself, not to other people. I've always been a great cheerleader to others. But when I got inside my own head and really started reflecting on it, I didn't say yes enough. And now I actually, instead of doing a New Year's resolution, I do a New Year's theme. And I look at a facet of my life that's not working. Like, I don't have enough good friends, so I made that year my girlfriend's year. And I went out of my way to nurture girlfriend relationships. Or my cash flow year. There was a year that I was like, wow, I am not making enough money. I got to focus on cash flow. Well, one of the years was the yes year. I didn't say yes to opportunities. And now I do my best when anyone asks me to do anything. I have that quick process of, is this something I can really, with integrity, say yes to? And it's really flooded me with opportunity, just saying yes. So I think, in answer to your question, saying no too many times would have been it.
Cool. Great stuff. All right, Robbi, this is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this. I knew you would be a stellar guest here. And you're probably, of all the people I've interviewed, you have the greatest facial expressions of no one has been that animated. So if I was giving out a prize, you would win the prize for most animated guest.
I'll put it up in my studio. Please make me a prize.
I can tell you've done theater. That's really obvious.
I want a certificate that I can frame and put in my studio.
I will get working on that. So let's talk about a book that changed your life. I know you mentioned a book earlier, The War of Art, and I think that was the only one. So I don't know if it's the same one, but a book that changed your life and why it did so.
A book that changed my life, and I am very serious about this. It's called Millionaire Mind Intensive by T. Harv Eker. And if you haven't read it, read it. It's basically about the beliefs within our personalities about money and about success. And you know that our families, our churches, our communities, are the tone of our community, whether it's city, agricultural, racially biased, what have you, create all of these beliefs in our minds that rule our lives and take us in directions. And this particular book is specifically geared about beliefs around money that you and I hold. And I actually took a seminar. It's great because it was $99 to take the seminar, but they put it on your credit card, but then if you show up, it's free. So I got 3 days of the most profound content about what isn't working inside myself, and didn't cost me anything. And it's basically so this teacher can bring people into his fold, and he sells other, high priced products. But the Millionaire Mind Intensive blew my world apart and made me realize that I needed to start thinking like a rich person instead of the person raised in a small rural Missouri town who was very, very humbly brought up. Awesome. Well and safely, but humbly.
Right. Now let me just to clarify, because I know T. Harv Eker has a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
Yeah.
Is the Millionaire Intensive, is that the event or is that another book?
Thank you for the clarification. Okay. You are correct. The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is the book. Okay, cool. And MillionaireMindIntensive.com is the seminar.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I have that book, and it is. Yeah, it's all about mostly about the mindset. But yeah, it's going to be powerful. Well, I have never attended one of the live events. I'm not even sure if he does them anymore, but if he does, oh good, I should, because I know a number of friends have said that changed their life. Yep.
And if he does, I'll go with you.
Oh, okay.
Because I've done it twice, and I'm ready to do it again because it's just cleaning out my head about prosperity.
Cool.
And spirit.
We'll make it a road trip. so awesome. Well, thank you. And so there's a question I've added more recently that I think really is important. It's like what's your big why? What truly motivates you to do what you do? Why are you so engaged in doing these spirit portraits and the other creative things that you've done? What's the ultimate bottom line, deeper reason why? What motivates you?
My mission is to empower, inspire, and motivate people to live more co-creative, authentic, joy-filled lives every day. And I believe that Spirit gave me this ability to paint portraits, and some other tools that I use that are, God-given, if you want, or universe-given, whatever you want to call it. But my mission is to support people like yours, in their success, finding the meaning of their life, and self-expressing, whether it be music, art, dance, what have you. And so what motivates me to do these portraits is I sit down with someone and I ask them, what are you passionate about? What do you love? What's missing from your life that you've never pursued? And what are the obstacles? And then we talk about those things as I'm painting the portrait. And then for the rest of their life, our relationship, I bring them closer to that. There was one woman who had been a mom all her life and said, I always wanted to be a landscape architect. And I called her up the next week and I said, what are you doing on Monday? And I said, because, you could take classes and there's local college that blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm free for lunch on Monday. And so we went for lunch and I said, how's your rest of the afternoon? She said, fine. I said, good. I have a little errand we want to do together. And I took her to the college and I signed her up with her for her first landscape architecture class. And she was horrified and delighted and has moved forward and has now built a business for herself on gardening. And so I'm I really want to just find what is that juicy mango part of your life that you see and you dream about and pulls at your heart, but you've never stepped into. I want to know what that is, and I want to just coerce you toward that. You know?
That's awesome. You know, when you first answered that question, I'm actually going to pull up my Twitter page here because I think I have a similar sort of phrase. But you had this sentence that you said very eloquently, and I'm just wondering. I have a feeling that maybe it wasn't just an ad-lib line. I have a feeling that's a mission that you have written out and you have kind of memorized as your what drives you. And so, is that important to be able to articulate, you know, and have that long sentence or whatever that tells yourself and the world what you do?
Yes, I believe that having an elevator pitch, which is kind of but my mission, you know, people ask me why I do what I do a lot. And my mission is deeper. It's on a spiritual level, right? And so it helps me clarify every decision I make for my business. Is that in alignment with that mission of who I am? And it's something that it took me years and years to figure out and to write. But that's a basic business premise too. Like, what's your mission? What's your mission for your business? What's your mission for your life? And so, yeah, there are certain things like that. One of the things that I think most people do is they're not prepared for questions that will propel them towards success.
Right.
And that mission statement is one. Another is I have a hard copy book that is of my work, actually. Let me pull it.
Whoops.
Hi, I'm back. So I have this book that I made that is of my work, and it's for sale on my website. But it shows people, and I carry it with me in my car at all times. I went to a spontaneous lunch with 20 women yesterday, and they said, "What do you do? What do you do?" And I had it in my purse, and I pulled it out and showed it to them. And you just never know when there's a prospect, when there's a customer, when there's someone that is really going to resonate with my work who's sitting before me. So I have created those bits of information to deliver whenever the opportunity strikes.
Cool. And I would encourage people. One of the beauties of Twitter is that it actually kind of forces you to communicate in a very concise manner. And so in your Twitter like description or whatever of what you do, I think they actually give you a whopping 160 characters instead of the 140.
Yes.
But so I recently updated my little like who I am and what I do, and it's sort of part of my newer brand or whatever. But I have to, it's something that I look at on a regular basis. But it says I help musicians, authors, and creative entrepreneurs use their talents and know-how to make a living and make a difference in the world.
Bravo!
You like that?
It's wonderful, and it is who you are.
Yeah,
it's absolutely who you are. It reflects your heart. And your set.
Yeah, and it's really important to have that. So if you're listening to this and you don't have your own like personal mission statement, now would be a good time to start. You don't have to get it. You don't have to have it's not ingrained in stone or whatever.
Yeah.
Etched in stone, I guess that's what I meant to say. So you could change it and alter it, but start writing it. And remind yourself.
And you can Google how do I write a mission statement, and you'll get a format.
Yep. That's
how I started.
How about looking forward? Any big audacious plans for the future, or the coming 6 months to a year?
Yes, I am working on an art installation that is going to be in the National Museum for Women of the Arts. I don't know how that's going to happen. Actually, I do kind of have ideas, but my vision is this installation. And I also have a series of paintings I'm doing of the Maasai tribe in Tanzania. My husband and I were married in the Ngorongoro crater by a Maasai shaman, in addition to our wedding in the United States by a minister. But I took a bunch of photographs during that trip, and there are these beautiful people, and so I am kind of vacillating between two galleries that could potentially represent that. So
that sounds awesome.
Yes, it's gonna be a good year.
We mentioned your website earlier, but let's hit it with give people that again and the correct spelling and all that. But where can people find you online, or where would you like them to hunt you down in a positive and loving way?
You can misspell it because I own all the URLs.
Oh, really?
Is idea.
That's smart. Yeah.
So Yeah, so my name is robbifirestone.com, and it's Robbi Firestone, like the tire.com. And yeah, or you can Facebook me, Robbi Firestone, Twitter, Robbi Firestone. It's all Robbi Firestone.
Pretty consistent, but Robbi
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Firestone.
But if you throw an E or a Y in there, it's you're still gonna get forwarded to my website because that's what we do.
That's really smart of you. I had no idea, but you are a sharp cookie. It's so.
Thank you.
And you're
All that free education I get.
That's education.
Education.
Well, it's a pleasure. I'm glad we finally were able to pull this off. I know people are going to love. I have had the pleasure of getting to know you on whether it was during our Success Partner calls or in your visit to St. Louis, and so I'm glad to share you now with my wider audience, because you're just an inspiring person and just have a great heart, and I wish you well, my good friend.
Thank you, my dear. I feel honored that you asked me to be on your show. Thank you very much. And please, if any of you out there have any questions or want to connect or, talk about anything that we spoke about, honestly, feel free to email me or call me, and I'm happy to share any of my resources I have with you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Robbi. That brings this interview to a close. This is Bob Baker saying thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll be back with another interview soon. So long for now.
Ciao, ciao.